بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كافة الحضور والمشاركين، بداية اسمحوا لي أن أعتذر عن التأخير لأسباب تقنية. للحصول على الترجمة للغة الإنجليزية، الرجاء استخدام القناة اللغة الإنجليزية. للأسف الشديد اللغة الفرنسية حاليا كترجمة غير متواجدة، ولكن إن شاء الله نعمل على حل هذه المشكلة. اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أرحب بالجميع باليوم الرابع لاجتماع الشركات العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. واليوم نحتفل باليوم العالمي لحملة التوعية بالتسونامي، وكذلك نطلق حملة جعل المدن المرنة 2030. بإذن الله تعالى تكون هذه الجلسة اليوم جلسة مفيدة لكافة المشاركين، ونستعرض فيها كافة الأمور التي نسعى إلى تحقيقها من خلال حملة جعل المدن مرنة 2030. وأعطي الكلمة الآن للسيد سجيت مهانتي، رئيس مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث للدول العربية، فليتفضل.
Thank you, Rania. Thank you very much, and colleagues, apologies for the delay in starting. So first of all, good morning and good afternoon, all colleagues. His Excellency Ahmad Subaiya, the Secretary General of Arab Towns Organization, and all colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome you to the fourth day of the fifth Arab Partnership meeting for disaster risk reduction. As some of you might know, the Arab Partnership meets twice every year with all the Arab governments, stakeholder groups, and UN agencies. The forum has been really successful and has become the biggest coordination and collaboration platform on disaster risk reduction in the region. We already have 3 days of meetings with all governments, stakeholders, and UN agencies in the region from last 3 days. And we have been discussing about the progress and the way forward with a joined up approach in reducing disaster risk in this region. So colleagues, today is a special day as we are here together to commemorate the World Tsunami Awareness Day, as well as the regional launch of the Making Cities Resilient 2030 program. So the World Tsunami Awareness Day was first celebrated in 2016. In fact, in December 2015, the UN General Assembly designated 5th November every year as the World Tsunami Awareness Day. This year, the World Tsunami Awareness Day will promote Target D of the Sendai 7 Target campaign, which encourages countries and communities to have national and local DRR strategies in place to save more lives against the disasters by end of 2020. The observance of the day meant to raise awareness on tsunamis and the importance of having early warning system to mitigate their impact. Although colleagues, tsunamis are not, I mean, they're rare, and then especially in the Arab region, we haven't faced those many, devastating events. We must also remember that the Arab region is not immune to such event. In 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, we know that Somalia was severely affected with almost 300 people, died, 5,000 people displaced, and a huge economic loss. In September 2013, there were also events in Oman. They faced a tsunami as a result of earthquake in which took place in Pakistan. And there are more examples like this from the past. Although the direct effect is not common in the Arab region, we must not forget that the cascading impact of these hazards from other locations can be devastating. The increasingly connected societies, the supply chains, the dependence on export and imports of goods and services can all be affected, irrespective of the location of the disaster. So this is why perhaps we also need to learn from history and build a culture of resilience from tsunamis. Now, countries and cities should integrate tsunami risk in their disaster risk reduction plan. And it's definite that if we fail to prepare well, then we are at risk of paying heavy price. So the question is, so are we ready for the next wave when it happens next? Of course, we don't know when it happens next, but we need to be ready for it. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, the global plan to reduce disaster losses by 2030, calls for a substantial increase in number of national and local disaster risk reduction strategies in place by the end of 2020, which is the target E, as most of you are familiar. And also urges all countries to have a multi-hazard early warning system in place by 2030, which is target D, and by end of 2030, this is the aim for early warning systems to be in majority of countries. Today, we know that almost 93 countries are reporting having national disaster risk reduction strategies in place, and 69 have access to multi-hazard early warning systems. And we are keen to witness progress in the Arab region towards this commitment. Shortly, we will hear from Dr. Bisar Imam, the Deputy Regional Director of UNESCO, and who will elaborate on how they are focusing on related tsunami plans and strategies in the Arab region. Today, colleagues, we have the second segment, or the second session will be dedicated to the Making Cities Resilient 2030 program, which was launched globally on 28th of October 2020. And today we are pleased to reflect on the Making Cities Resilient 2030 and launch it in the Arab region. This Making Cities Resilient campaign builds on a decade of learning from UNDRR's earlier campaign, which is Making Cities Resilient campaign. We are looking forward for a new program on making cities resilient until 2030 and advocate around the need for local government authorities to prepare for disasters and build resilience. So building on the momentum from last one decade in the Arab region, there are 4,358 cities have already joined the campaign. And the new phase of the MCR, the Making Cities Resilient, recognizes the increasing need for a systemic approach to risk reduction at the local level. So colleagues, as we proceed in the day today, I really want to thank you all for your participation in this event. And I look forward to hear from all other speakers and participants. Thank you very much. And Rania, I hand it over to you.
Rania, you're muted.
Thank you, Alia. Thank you. أشكر السيد مهانتي على كلمته، وننتقل الآن للسيد بشر إمام من يونسكو لإلقاء الضوء على اليوم العالمي للتوعية بحملة تسونامي. فليتفضل مشكورا.
Thank you very much, Rania. Thank you very much, Dr. Mohanty. السلام عليكم. Good morning. سألقي كلمتي باللغة الإنجليزية إذا كان ذلك مقبولا. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished participants, allow me first to welcome you on behalf of Dr. Ghaith Fariz, the Director of UNESCO Regional Bureau for Science in the Arab States, and also to convey his regret for not being able to join us today due to reasons beyond his control. It is, of course, my pleasure and honor to participate with you today on behalf of Dr. Fariz in commemorating the World Tsunami Awareness Day. First, I would like to thank the UNDRR Regional Office in the Arab States for organizing this event and organizing the entire 4 days of discussions and deliberation, and for giving us all the opportunity to highlight the importance of readiness, and for highlighting that readiness requires that we all foster a participatory DRR governance through which disaster managers, responders, society can work together to face this natural hazard and to minimize its impact, and above all, to save lives. As you all know, these giant waves, tsunamis, caused by rapid rise in sea level resulting from earthquakes that trigger sharp movement in the seafloor, these carry tremendous energy as they travel at a speed that may reach 500 miles per hour. Tsunamis cause damages to infrastructure as well as to coastal ecosystems. Without readiness, these tsunamis may also inflict significant loss in human lives and well-being. Often, societies and economy will continue to suffer the ripple effect long after the tsunami waves have subsided. As the waves subside, they leave behind damaged cultural historical landmarks, debilitated infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and railways networks, pollution as oil spills from refineries and storage depot, as well as we saw in the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami in 2011, they may also potentially lead to a release of radioactive substances from nuclear power plants. Over the long term, impacts may include spreading diseases due to mixing between freshwater, sewage, and saltwater and other possible pollutants from chemical manufacturing plants. They may increase the risk to food security, as mentioned very aptly by Dr. Mohanty, due to impacting local, supply chains. And they also cause destruction of fisheries and coastal livelihood. As in any natural disasters, of course, tsunami survivors are prone to mental and emotional impacts. In the Arab region, if we take the Arab region as a whole, about 27% of the population of the Arab countries live in coastal zones, along the approximately 35,000 cumulative coastlines in the region. Ancient history also records events that happened in the past between 365 BC and 551, affecting Mediterranean coastal areas. More recently, coast of Oman was impacted in the middle of the 20th century, and more recently in 2013, as well as due to tsunamis in the Indian Ocean. Of course, as the occurrence of these huge waves is not necessarily as frequent in the Arab region as in comparison to, of course, other natural disasters, it is imperative that we make provision to strengthen the readiness of countries, local governance, and local communities to address tsunamis and their long-term impact on economy, society, and ecosystem. Furthermore, studies have shown that climate change and the potential rise of sea level may amplify the impact of tsunami hazard. For large tsunami, the impact may reach further inland. And for smaller tsunami, it is now kind of documented by several studies that smaller tsunami may cause more damage than they do nowadays. Some studies have also identified several Arab countries as being subject to medium hazard level for tsunami incidents, with more than 10% chance of potentially damaging tsunami effect in these countries within the next 50 years. As mentioned also, Target E of the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction, 2015-2030, calls on all countries to establish national and local disaster risk reduction strategies, and to have these strategies in place to save more lives against disasters by the end of 2020. Recognizing that tsunami readiness is part of such integrated strategy, having risk-informed systems linked to strong governance to ensure the readiness of cities threatened by tsunami and to mitigate the tsunami's impact, and especially to reduce to the minimum level the loss of lives, become an important pillar of any disaster risk reduction strategy. At UNESCO, we have been working on tsunami issues for nearly 50 years now. The Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, IOC, of UNESCO has been playing a leading role in promoting scientific cooperation on ocean science and coastal zone systems. Among IOC contributions to member states is the coordination of the Pacific Tsunami Warning System, PTWS, with the goal of protecting people from marine hazards, including tsunamis. And with the 50 years experience with the PTWS, UNESCO IOC now joins with sister UN agencies, including UNDRR, with NGOs, also to lead effort to build a marine-based sustainable tsunami early warning system. And I must say early warning system is very important I think it was in 2011, an event occurred, I'm not sure exactly of the date, in Chile. Early warning system saved nearly several million lives due to an early warning system that was issued by one of the tsunami warning centers. It was a center in the US. In addition, of course, to supporting member state preparedness, IOC has launched the UNESCO's Tsunami Ready program. That program aims to guide coastal cities in being ready for tsunami with guidelines on mitigation, on preparedness, and on response. The program in 2015 was adopted, and its pilot has now been extended to the Pacific and Indian Oceans. More recently, and in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, IOC issued guidelines on evacuation, tsunami-caused evacuation during COVID-19, so that during that evacuation, issues are taken and care is taken not to become a super spreading event and to increase the impact and amplify and what happened beyond. As I mentioned before, participatory governance is an integral part of DRR strategy, including of stakeholder, the public, and of course, local authorities is an important part of that. Such inclusion can foster optimal coordination during disaster alert, meaning that the information on disaster alert can reach everybody in the appropriate way. Such coordination and engagement with stakeholders and with the public will also mean that the public will understand the message and be able to follow the warning and the alert and the direction given by local authority. It is very important that we establish this type of governance and to include this kind of interaction in our governance. Ultimately, such is definitely going to save many lives during the disaster and will impact the post-disaster recovery stage, where it allows lives and livelihood to cover and to ultimately thrive again. I thank, on behalf of Dr. Ghais Fariz and on my own behalf, UNDRR for their coordination of this important event. And I also thank you all for joining this commemoration. Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا للسيد بشر إمام من يونسكو. نقوم الآن بمواصلة الأجندة من غير عرض الفيديو الخاص بتسونامي، وذلك لالتزام بعض المشاركين في جلسات أخرى. ووفقا للأجندة أسلم الكلمة الافتتاحية للسيد أحمد حمد صبيح، أمين عام منظمة المدن العربية، وذلك للحديث عن إطلاق برنامج جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود ومرنة 2030 على المستوى الإقليمي. فليتفضل.
السيد سوجيت مهانتي، رئيس مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، السادة منظمة الأمم المتحدة للتربية والعلوم والثقافة اليونسكو، السادة المشاركين الكرام، بداية يسعدني أن أتوجه بالشكر للسيد سوجيت مهانتي، رئيس مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، على الدعوة الكريمة للمشاركة في الاجتماع الخامس للشراكة العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث وإطلاق البرنامج الجديد جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود 2030 مدن مرنة 2030، ليكون بمثابة انطلاقة جديدة لمنطقتنا العربية نحو مدن مستدامة وآمنة وشاملة. نلتقي اليوم والذي يصادف الاحتفال باليوم العالمي للتوعية بأمواج تسونامي 2020 لنؤكد جهودنا ومساعينا في الاستعداد لمواجهة المتغيرات والمستجدات المتسارعة، وأهمية رسم الخطط والاستراتيجيات للحد من الكوارث والعمل على تنفيذها لتنعم منطقتنا بالأمن والاستدامة. لقد حرصت منظمة المدن العربية منذ تأسيسها في العام 1967 في الكويت على احتضان المدن العربية، ودأبت على تفعيل وتنفيذ البرامج والاستراتيجيات التي من شأنها أن تحقق للمدن التنمية المستدامة بمفهومها الواسع، خاصة وأن منظمتنا ترتبط بشبكة واسعة من الشراكات الإقليمية والدولية، وذلك انسجاما مع أهدافها ورؤيتها بأن المدينة هي الغاية من مخرجات التنمية المستدامة. فقد كان هناك تعاون بين منظمة المدن العربية واستراتيجية الأمم المتحدة الدولية لتقليص أخطار الكوارث في العام 2010 تمثل في إطلاق الحملة العالمية لتقليص الكوارث العام 2010-2011 جعل المدن مرنة، وتركز عملنا في المنطقة العربية طوال الفترة السابقة. واليوم نحن نعمل معا كشركاء لتحقيق أهداف البرنامج الجديد لجعل المدن قادرة على الصمود 2030 مدن مرنة 2030، بأن يكون لدى المدن القدرة على مجابهة ومواجهة تداعيات التغيرات في كافة الظروف. أن تحقيق أهداف البرنامج الجديد مدن مرنة 2030 يتطلب رؤية عمرانية جديدة لبناء مدن شاملة للجميع تستوفي مقومات المنع والاستدامة والأمان، بأن تكون لدى المدن القدرة على المجابهة والحد من مخاطر الكوارث من خلال البيانات والدراسات وآليات التنفيذ التي تحقق للمدن بناء المنظومة. لابد من رسم خارطة طريق واضحة تمكن المدن من اتخاذ خطوات ملموسة لتطبيق مبادئ البرنامج الجديد، مع ضرورة التعاون مع بعضها مما يعزز خطواتها في أن تكون مدن مرنة، لا سيما وأن جميع المدن تواجه مخاطر مماثلة، بالإضافة إلى أهمية تكاتف كافة الجهود والتعاون بين القطاعين العام والخاص لدعم المدن في تنفيذ البرنامج الجديد وجعلها مدنا مرنة قادرة على الصمود. أن التحديات المتصاعدة التي تشهدها المدن مع التوسع العمراني التي تتطلب التزاما وعملا جماعيا على الصعيد المحلي والإقليمي والعالمي من أجل أن تبقي المدن مركزا للنمو والازدهار وأن تكون مدن آمنة ومستدامة. وفي هذه المناسبة أود الإشادة بمبادرة مدينة دبي لإنشاء مركز لمرونة المدن تماشيا مع البرنامج الجديد مدن مرنة 2030. ختاما مرة أخرى أشكر رئيس مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث وفريق العمل على ما قاموا به من جهود، والشكر موصول للجنة التنسيقية الإقليمية للدول العربية المعنية ببرنامج جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود 2030، متمنيا أن يحقق اجتماعنا الغايات والأهداف المطلوبة التي انعقدت من أجلها.
أشكرك جزيل الشكر سيدي على هذه الكلمة. ونتابع الآن بعرض مبادرة جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود 2030 من قبل عرض من زميلتنا عليا السيد، فتتفضل بمشاركة العرض الخاص بها.
Thank you, Rania. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you today in this special event. I'm going to present to you an overview of the new Making Cities Resilient 2030 program. As Mr. Sujit has mentioned, the Making Cities Resilient program was launched in 2010 after constructive consultations with different stakeholders, national and local governments. The primary aim of the campaign was to raise awareness and commitment of local government on urban resilience and disaster risk reduction. Today, 4,360 cities with more than 300 demonstrating increased commitments to taking actions towards ensuring the safety and well-being of citizens from disasters and crises. With the MCR campaign ending this year in 2020, cities, partners, and different stakeholders unanimously requested that efforts to support local governments in strengthening disaster and climate resilience should continue. Following a series of consultations held between 2018 and 2019, it was evident that cities ranging from awareness and strategic planning to effective implementations of the risk-informed urban development plans. Designed to address those needs and with partnership at the core of the program, the new MCR 2030 was launched on the 28th of October during MPLES Daring Cities events and will be effective as of January 2021 and until December 2030. As you can see, this is a snapshot of the different partners and stakeholders that have contributed to the MCR throughout the years. The MCR 2030 program will include a resilience roadmap for cities with defined commitments over time on how to improve their local resilience, a global partnership of key partners with expertise in urban resilience, DRR, climate change, and SDGs, to bring synergized collaboration and ensure coherence towards the 2030 agenda. A regional network of actors with strong links and implementation experience form vulnerable places and spaces suiting regional contexts. A governance structure that supports, connects, and facilitates resilience building, offering a range of tools and services, including peer-to-peer learning and knowledge exchange amongst cities. The program will also offer a suite of tools and knowledge guidance that enhances cities' understanding of the risks they're facing, an online dashboard allowing cities to record and monitor their progress along the resilience roadmap, and finally, a marketplace to find potential specialist service providers who can support the implementation of actions. The MCR 2030 aims at creating an enabling environment through which cities can improve their understanding of risk and accordingly know better, as you can see in Strategic Objective 1, plan better by strengthening their capacity to develop local resilience strategies and plans, and better implement those plans to enhance their resilience, which is very important as the program aims to move beyond the advocacy and awareness that the MCR campaign started and rather support cities in the implementation phase. It will also strive to ensure that vertical links between local and national governments are enhanced and strengthened, horizontal links with local partners are strengthened, and that cities are connected and have the opportunity to learn and share from each other. The MCR 2030 programmatic approach is built around a three-stage resilience roadmap that is aligned with the strategic objectives I mentioned earlier. The program is tailored to engage cities at different levels, since cities are not the same and are in different stages in terms of their capacities, resources, and development trajectory. Based on assessments and self-identification of entry points by cities, cities will be classified in 3 stages in the resilience roadmap, and accordingly will engage in implementing different aspects of the 12 thematic areas of the program as shown on the slide. Category A cities are those which show interest and commitment towards moving along the resilience roadmap, while Category B cities are those committed to developing a resilience strategy and ensuring that local strategies are risk-informed. And finally, Category C strategies will be those who are more advanced in terms of already having strategies in place and are committed to implement and mainstream DRR across all sectors. Those cities are also cities who are willing to share their experience with others. The end goal, of course, is to ensure that all cities improve their resilience and are on the pathway to deliver SDG 11. The MCR 2030 Resilience Hub recognition will be awarded to cities which have already reached a high level of resilience building and with an expertise and interest in disseminating the best practices they learn with other cities. The primary purpose of this recognition is to support capacity building activities of the new program. In order to be appointed as a resilience hub, cities has to be in stage C, willing to invest either $25,000 in grant or in kind to another city to support their journey, successfully financed at least one initiative arising from the resilience roadmap, demonstrates the ability to generate useful DRR knowledge tools and disseminate them, and finally promotes city-to-city knowledge exchanges. The MCR 2030 will operate at 2 levels simultaneously. At the global level, the program implementation and delivery strategy is negotiated and agreed among core partners coordinated through the Global Coordinating Committee and supported by the Global Secretariat served by UNDRR Global Education and Training Institute. The regional level is where the implementation and support to cities occurs. The regional coordinating committees will be responsible for ensuring synergies among regional partners in providing technical support to cities so they can progress along the resilience roadmap. And they will be reporting to the global coordinating committees. The RCC will also be supported by the regional secretariat served by the respective UNDRR regional offices. The MCR 2030 aims to be a platform co-owned and co-delivered by core partners, which are international agencies, organizations that provide technical knowledge and other resources necessary for cities' DRR and resilience needs. Mainly as members of the Global Coordinating Committee, core partners will contribute their time and knowledge to assist the MCR 2030, be involved in supporting the 12 thematic areas of the MCR 2030, and primarily support MCR at the strategic level, providing high-level inputs to ensure that the strategy stays on track and the program progresses according to key success measures. In addition to the core partners, there will be supporting partners, private sector and specialist service providers, national governments and associations of municipalities. Supporting partners include specialized agencies that have mandates and perform activities that are well aligned with the program and can provide specific technical inputs for cities to move along the resilience roadmap. To progress along the resilience roadmap, cities will need as well access to technical advisory services offered by private organizations or specialized agencies. An online registry will be made available in each of the 5 regions, functioning as a directory to bring together service providers and those in need of the service. Through it, cities can find service providers who offer technical one-on-one advice to help cities formulate and implement their DRR strategies. And most likely, these service providers will charge a fee for these services. National governments will need to guide and support the development of DRR resilience strategies at the local level by providing guidance, tools, expertise, capacity development, and resources. This may be in the form of a national program for promoting DRR and resilience at the local level, embedded in the urban development related ministries. Moving to the regional level, a preparatory meeting was held on the 6th of October 2020, where the Arab States Regional Coordinating Committee Terms of Reference was adopted and UN Habitat was elected as a co-chair. The MCR 2030 includes a number of key actors in the field of DRR and urban resilience in the region, such as MPLES, IFRC, UNOPS, UNDP, UNESCO, Arab Stag, UAE Arise, Islamic Development Bank, Aqaba City, and Dubai City. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Rania.
شكرا جزيلا لعليا السيد زميلتنا من مكتب الأمم المتحدة لحد مخاطر كوارث المدن العربية. حملة جعل المدن مرنة تعتمد على قوة الشراكات على المستوى المحلي، وللحديث عن دور الشراكات من خلال منظمات الأمم المتحدة يسعدنا أن نعطي المجال للسيدة رانيا هداية من UN Habitat للحديث عن هذا الموضوع. فلتتفضل. أو عليا إن أمكن sharing screen نوقف
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I did unmuted myself, and I think I will share the presentation. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It is really my pleasure to join the webinar today and to be with you. I don't know if you started seeing my presentation or not.
Not yet, Rania.
Okay.
Yes, we can now. Thank you.
Good, excellent. Okay, so I'll start very briefly and quickly to go through the main urban challenges that that our cities in the Arab region face. So, what are the main and more stressful challenges that we face in the cities of the Arab region? Of course, conflict is number one, and what it entails, and what the effect on the rapid influx of IDPs and refugees to the cities, and with the burden on the limited on the burden on the infrastructure and the basic services, and destruction, of course, of housing units, infrastructure, and basic services. That's one of the major and most very stressful challenge that our cities in the Arab region face. Another one that relates to economic performance, and unfortunately we all see that our local economies in our cities are not diversified, and that results in unemployment rates, scarcity of small-scale credits, growth of informal economic sector, and I guess most of the profiles of the Arab cities relate to this. Social trends, vulnerabilities in the cities, and the gaps. We have really cities that are characterized by social inequalities and marginalization of some groups like youth and women. The rapid urbanization that is happening, and it does negatively affect the urban demographic profile. So we have unemployment, and especially when it comes to youth. And we have a lot of inequalities and gender marginalization and inequalities, as I just mentioned. We have issues also that relate to land and urban planning, centralization, very strong centralization of planning and management processes, which affects the capacity to effectively plan and regulate the urban development and expansion. And we don't have good tools and planning approaches, which results in a lot of spatial segregation and very negative and a lot of more negative aspects when it comes to land and urban planning in the Arab cities. Of course, the issue of climate change and what the cities face in terms of droughts, desertification, the rising of the sea level rise, the level of the sea, especially in the coastal zones, the floods, and increase in average of temperature. So all this leads us to talk about how important it is to build the resilience of our cities and the impact of disasters in the Arab region. Major impacts and damages are on our economies and the economies of the cities. For example, we saw in the case of the Syrian crisis, the cost of the damage and the structure of the physical infrastructure caused by the crisis was estimated around $67.3 billion. There are, of course, major social and political impacts. Vulnerability to disaster impacts is shaped by gender, age, and disability and political systems. The more vulnerable are more affected, and they get more vulnerable, and they get more disaggregated and marginalized in their communities. Cultural aspects and impacts, of course, most of our cultural heritage is in the city. So when the damage happens, in the cities, there is and because there is a lot of concentration of the cultural assets and heritage in the cities, damage happens a lot to our culture heritage. And of course, there are safety and security issues, including tenure, insecurity, and forced eviction. UN Habitat talked a lot about the issue, the new urban agenda that was adopted in 2016. So it did talk a lot and stressed on the importance of including disaster risk reduction and management and building the resilience of the cities. So it promoted and it actually encouraged local governments to include disaster risk reduction and management and building resilience of the cities in their visions, in any urban context, and in the planning processes, to reduce vulnerability and build the responsiveness to natural and human-made hazards, in addition to working on mitigation and adaptation to climate change. So we see a lot of elements and discussion and focus on a provision of basic services for all citizens, for example, promoting cleaner cities and healthier cities, in also as promoted in the new urban agenda document, issues that relate to taking action to address the climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, improving connectivity and support to innovative and green initiatives, the respect of the rights issues of the refugees and the migrants and IDPs, ensure that all citizens have equal opportunities and equal rights to their cities without discrimination, the right to the city issue and leaving no one behind. All this should lead to strengthening the resilience of the cities to reduce the risk and the impact of disasters. We also, UN Habitat also promoted and encouraged local leaders to commit to actions to support building our cities' resilience. So it stressed the importance of developing inclusive disaster risk reduction strategies, conducting periodical assessments of the disaster risk caused by natural and human-made hazards, facilitating the sustainable management of natural resources in cities and human settlements, and adopting policies and plans that are responsive to all categories and stakeholders of the cities, and that are gender and age responsive. Mainstreaming data-informed disaster risk reduction and management at all levels to reduce vulnerabilities, promoting the resilience of and resource-efficient infrastructures, and reducing the risks and impact of disasters, including the rehabilitation and upgrading of informal settlements, ensuring the timely and effective local response to address the immediate needs of all inhabitants affected by conflicts and disasters. And it also stresses on the idea and the principle of building back better with the post-disaster recovery process, and raising public awareness on of the risks and promoting investments to prevent and avoid risks. In our strategic plan 2020 to 23, the vision of the plan itself is a better quality of life for all in an urbanizing world, and with an objective of having a sustainable urbanization process that is advanced and that is could be the driver of development and peace to improve the living conditions of all in line with the SDGs. In the strategic plan 2020 to 23, we have 4 pillars, and they all relate to building resilience of the cities and disaster, including disaster risk management and reduction in our work in the urban context. So for example, on domain 1, which talks about reducing spatial inequality and poverty in communities across the urban-rural continuum, there is a number of outcomes that relate to building resilience and working on the better management and of disasters, like increasing and equal access to basic services and mobility and public spaces, like also the increased secure access to land and adequate and affordable houses. These are examples. And when we look at the domain 2, which talks about the prosperity of cities and the region, one of the outcomes, for example, promotes the improved spatial connectivity and productivity of the cities and in the region, and how we should be promoting and working on the abilities of cities to be the engine for economic and sustainable growth, the increased equitable distribution for locally generated revenues, and of course, domain 3 and 4 that I directly related with the subject, the one that talks about climate action and improved urban development, with the 3 outcomes related to reduced greenhouse emissions and improved air quality, improved resource efficiency and protection of ecological assets, effective adaptation of communities and infrastructure to climate change, and the last one on crisis and crisis prevention and response that stresses on the social integration and inclusive communities, improving the living standards and inclusion of migrants, refugees, IDPs, and returnees, and the enhanced resilience of the built environment and infrastructure. There is a definition, I mean, the UN Habitat has a definition on urban resilience, and it talks about the ability of any urban system with its inhabitants to maintain continuity through all shocks and stresses while positively adapting and transforming towards sustainability. It identified key drivers for building urban resilience and the resilience of the cities. One that talks about city planning and instruments to reduce the risks and prevent creation new risks and prepare for climate change and disaster risks. Another that talks about existing policies, including the national urban policies. In UN Habitat, we encourage all governments to work on the national urban policies to promote compact, socially inclusive and better integrated and connected cities, which foster sustainable urban development. The third driver talks about the mechanisms and instruments that promote coherence across the systems and the sectors and organizations related to their policies, plans, and program processes and investments in urban resilience. There is also UN Habitat created the tool, the City Resilience Action Planning tool, with 4 components. This tool constitutes a framework to work with resilience with 4 main components. One that talks about urban planning and environment, and it includes the design and organization of urban spaces and activities in a way that promotes the maintenance and restoration of the quality of the natural environment. The second component relates to urban infrastructure and basic services, and it stresses on the the public capital assets and services central to the population well-being and this prosperity of the cities and urban resilience, including, of course, roads, bridges, water, hospitals, schools, all the relevant basic services and infrastructure. The third component relates to urban economy and security, and here it stresses and it promotes the idea of how our cities could, if managed and planned well, could be the engine for growth and could be the tool that enables government to capture the wealth that is created by the urbanization process and could be the drivers for sustainable development in general. Another component that talks and that deals with disaster preparedness, response, and awareness, and it really promotes promotes acquiring the proper knowledge and capacities to effectively anticipate and respond to and recover from the impacts of disasters and hazards. Governance, urban governance, the fifth and last component on the framework, talks about urban governance and the capacities of government to lead strategy and to develop political strategies and their own the capacities, also technical capacities of the government to lead their development processes. In the region, in the Arab world, in the regional office, through the different country offices, we have a number of projects and programs or initiatives that we were able to achieve in the last period that relates to disaster risk reduction and management and building cities resilience. So, for example, in Lebanon and Syria, we worked a lot to enhance the local governance and planning capacities through empowering regional and municipal technical offices and capacities. We also worked a lot on with a number of local governments to support the municipalities to respond to emergency needs. That resulted from the Syrian crisis and the refugees crisis. We also worked a lot with a number of local governments and cities on cities and neighborhood profiling to guide the humanitarian response and assist in the reconstruction and recovery process. In Jordan, we worked with the local governments on strengthening resilience and supporting vulnerable Jordanian communities and refugees in Amman against flash floods. And we also, in Jordan and Lebanon, we worked on increasing the resilience of displaced persons to climate change and water-related challenges in urban settlements. And in Egypt, we worked with the local governments to tackle and work on the issue of water scarcity through the introduction of a technology that avails clean water to the citizens, and that is quite inexpensive. It costs only 5% of the normal costs that of the normal tools and methodologies of water provision. Of course, with the Beirut crisis, we worked a lot with the Beirut city and Burj Hamoud on the technical support of the municipalities and Beirut to overcome the crisis, develop SOPs for the shelter response, focusing on the rehabilitation and structurally unsound buildings. We worked a lot on HLP rights and mainstreaming HLP rights across the response, assessing the damages that happened to schools and to the heritage buildings, and supporting the most vulnerable families with temporary shelter and essential repairs to damage process, and supporting the debris management, which was quite an issue. We had also a number of knowledge products that we are very proud to have that we were able to to publish in the region and throughout the different country offices. So I think you see them here. We published something on informal settlements in the Arab region. We also another book on and document on local climate action in the Arab region, on migration, a number of knowledge products. And we also issued a number of reports and flagships publications. So we worked with the government of Egypt on guidelines for the protection measures in public transportation in Egypt, and a number of reports on COVID response, and the one on the initial planning framework for the reconstruction of Mosul, and one on housing, land and property issues for the Syrian refugees in Lebanon. These are the publications and the knowledge products that we were able to produce in the regional office for Arab states through working with the different country offices and working with the different local governments. And that is it. Thank you very much for listening, and I look for the joining and being with you for the rest of the sessions and the presentations. Thank you.
شكرا جزيلا رانيا هداية من برنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، وشكرا جزيلا على المشاركة المفصلة. طبعا هناك العديد من الاستفسارات والعديد من الطلبات من المشاركين والحضور للحصول على العرض. طبعا إن شاء الله راح نقدمها للجميع بعد الويبينار. ننتقل الآن لمشاركة السيد كيشان خداي رئيس الفريق برنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي للمكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، فليتفضل للحديث عن دور برنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي. وسيدة رانيا لو ممكن بس نغلق السكرين، شيرينج سكرين. شكرا جزيلا.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be with you today. I'll just be providing some remarks, so no screen sharing on my part. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today on behalf of UNDP, Regional Hub for Arab States. I just want to start by congratulating UN DRR, UN Habitat, and the others on this on the global launch, of course, of the MCR 2030, and also for this regional set of activities set to take shape in the coming months. The goal of expanding support for city resilience comes at a critical time in the region. More than ever, this year has reminded us of the importance of putting in place systems for better management of risks and enhanced preparedness for crises. Owing to the climate crisis, this year has also been one of the warmest years on record globally, with serious implications in cities across the region in terms of floods, heat waves, etc. The Beirut port blast also reminds us of the importance of industrial disasters and the need for enhanced safety and planning systems in urban industrial zones of the region. These issues, of course, converge at the local level with the COVID-19 crisis and its serious immediate and long-term socioeconomic impacts in cities across the region. So managing the multidimensionality of risk is thus a top priority, with new risk-informed systems of urban development needed to enhance preparedness and to build resilience in local communities. Supporting enhanced capacities for risk reduction, whether it's climatic disasters, pandemics, or industrial disasters, is a top priority then for the UN and various agencies. Three aspects of this challenge that we'd like to note and highlight here. The first is that cities of the region have been, of course, suffering from conflict and displacement for the past decade. So a key priority would thus be to help cities hit hard by war to stabilize and build back better. Crisis response and reconstruction plans at the local level to restore access to services like energy, like water, like waste management. Recovery of infrastructure is confronted today by a shortage of funds, destruction of cities' assets, as well as the loss of human resources in local institutions. So in concert with UN partner agencies, UNDP has a large set of initiatives in this regard to help address these issues in cities and towns in places like Yemen, in Libya, Iraq, and other countries that are hit hard by conflict and displacement the last several years. Second priority I'd mention is that cities across the region, of course, have been suffering from a large deficit of trust and accountability. In line with SDG 11, enhancing local and city governance is key to achieving the 2030 vision for sustainable development. So a form of governance that effectively empowers city-level financing, decision-making, infrastructure development is absent in much of the region. Local efforts towards the 2030 vision are challenged by outdated urban plans and inability to sustain urban development initiatives due to the consequences of the pandemic and the sharp economic downturn. So to this end, joint UN programming is needed to support risk-informed systems of local governance, financing, and development, so that cities can emerge from the ongoing economic crisis as catalysts for more inclusive and sustainable development. Third and last is the need to address growing issues of climate change, energy, water insecurity, toxic pollution, driven by a growing sense of urgency on these issues particularly, and in a region where more than 2/3 of the population will reside in cities by 2050, the path to green cities can serve as an engine to achieve the environment goals of the SDGs, as well as the global frameworks on climate change and biodiversity. In particular, green infrastructure investments need to be scaled up to forge a new climate resilient, sustainable energy economy in the region. Embracing a holistic green economy approach to city planning and governance can help catalyze positive change across climate, water, energy, waste, and other priorities. This can help prevent the growing risk of climate displacement in coastal cities, urban water supply and waste management crises in parts of the region, and it can reduce costly energy import dependence by shifting to solar solutions. These are all major strains, of course, on cities across the region. To this end, UNDP today has over $500 million of ongoing grants for countries in the Arab region, specifically dedicated to action on climate change, energy, and environment. This helps build resilience to climate impact, energy and water security, and puts in place more integrated sustainable development policies. Many of these initiatives have important results at the city level in particular, and thus serve as good platforms to find synergies as MCR 2030 takes shape. So across the crisis recovery, the local governance, and the environmental sustainability agendas, UNDP looks forward to working with our partner UN agencies here today and others in this event on this MCR process to help local partners manage risk and build resilience on the road to 2030. So with that, I'll stop there, and thanks again for inviting us to this session today. Thank you.
Thank you. شكرا جزيلا للسيد كيشان خداي وللحديث عن التزام المدن ودورها في جعل حملة جعل المدن مرنة 2030 حملة ناجحة. يسعدنا استضافة سيادة العقيد أحمد بورقيبة من شرطة دبي للحديث عن دورهم وعن الوضع والتطورات التي تحدث في إمارة دبي. سيادة العقيد أحمد فليتفضل. الفيديو والميوت. تفضل سيادة العقيد.
هذه ما في موت.
لا بنسمعك سيادة العقيد. تفضل.
تسمعون واضح صوت؟
الصوت واضح والصورة واضحة. تفضل.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. تحية طيبة لجميع الزملاء المشاركين في هذا الاجتماع بالنيابة عن مدينة دبي وبالإصالة عن نفسي. نتوجه بالشكر الجزير للمكتب الأمم المتحدة الإقليمي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث في المنطقة العربية على جهودهم المخلصة في التواصل المستمر والدعم الكبير لجميع المدن العربية، كما تقدم بالشكر الجزيل لجميع الشركاء الدوليين داعمين، وخص بالشكر منظمة الأمم المتحدة للتربية والعلوم والثقافة، منظمة المدن العربية، وبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، وبرنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي. اسمحوا لي بتقديم موجز عن جهود مدينة دبي في مجال المرونة والحد من مخاطر الكوارث، وكذلك مشاركة المدينة في حملة المدن المرنة والتزاما بالحملة الجديدة جعل المدن المرنة MCR 2030. هدف مدينة دبي من خلال الانضمام للحملة السابقة لجعل المدن المرنة إلى الاستفادة المطلقة من خبرة مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث في هذا المجال، حيث استطاعت المدينة وخلال فترة قياسية من إنجاز جميع المتطلبات التي تضمن للمدينة وضع متميز عالميا في مجال المرونة والحد من المخاطر، وأن تكون نموذج عالمي يحدث في هذا المجال. قامت الحكومة المحلية للمدينة المجلس التنفيذي بتكليف القيادة العامة لشرطة دبي لأن تكون نقطة الاتصال المرجعية مع مكتب الأمم المتحدة لحد من مخاطر الكوارث. تعمل الشرطة بتشكيل فريق عمل يضم جميع الشركاء الاستراتيجيين والمعنيين بنشاطات المرونة والحد من مخاطر الكوارث، حيث ضم هذا الفريق الجهات الحكومية وغير الحكومية والقطاع الخاص والمؤسسات الأكاديمية والبحثية وكذلك المجتمع المدني. وكذلك تم تحديد وضع المرونة للمدينة بناء على التقييم التفصيلي للأساسيات العشر التي حددها المكتب الأمم المتحدة، والتي تشمل الحوكمة والقدرة المالية، الأبعاد العديدة للتخطيط والتأهب للكوارث، وكذلك استجابة للكوارث والتعافي إلى ما بعد الحدث. واعتمادا على هذا التقييم فقد تم وضع استراتيجية دبي المرنة 2020 إلى 2030 وكذلك خطة العمل المرحلية 2020 إلى 2022 بحيث كانت داعمة ومتكاملة مع جميع الاستراتيجيات المحلية والوطنية وكذلك السياسات العامة والتوجهات والخطط المحلية والوطنية. كما تم تطوير هذه الاستراتيجية وخطط العمل بحيث تكون رؤيتها وأهدافها الاستراتيجية متوائمة مع الأطر العالمية ذات العلاقة، كما أنها تساعد في تحقيق العديد من الالتزامات الدولية التي تتقاطع معها مثل إطار عمل سنداي 2015 إلى 2030 وتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة 2015 إلى 2030 واتفاقيات التغيير المناخي والأهداف المناخية الرئيسية التي تم الاتفاق عليها من خلال اتفاق باريس وغيرها. كما تم تطوير مجموعة من المبادرات النوعية والنشاطات المتميزة الداعمة لعمل برنامج دبي المرنة، منها على سبيل المثال المشاركة المجتمعية الأولى على مستوى العالم للاحتفال بيوم العالمي لحد من مخاطر الكوارث في عام 2019 والذي جرى تنظيمه في مول الإمارات بحضور واسع لكافة القطاعات المجتمعية. إيمانا مدينة دبي بالدور الرئيسي والفاعل للقطاع الخاص في دعم مرونة والحد من المخاطر، فقد قامت المدينة ببناء شراكات فاعلة ومستدامة في هذا القطاع، حيث سيتم قريبا إن شاء الله إطلاق تحالف القطاع الخاص لمجتمعات مرنة ضد الكوارث، حيث ستعمل تحت مظلة برنامج دبي المرنة. أعلنت مدينة دبي التزامها بتنظيم المؤتمر الدولي الأول مدن المرنة، والتي سيتم بإذن الله عقده خلال معرض إكسبو 2020 وذلك بالشراكة مع مكتب الأمم المتحدة لحد من مخاطر الكوارث وكذلك التعاون مع العديد من المنظمات الدولية ذات العلاقة. وكذلك تم الاعتراف لمدينة دبي كمدينة نموذجية في مجال المرونة ضمن 56 مدينة أخرى على مستوى العالم، وانضم من مجموع 4358 مدينة انضمت لحملة جعل المدن مرنة. كما أن مدينة دبي هي المدينة الوحيدة على مستوى العالم التي حققت هذا النموذج العالمي في 3 مجالات اللي هي المرونة والذكاء والاستدامة. عبرت مدينة دبي عن التزامها بالحملة الجديدة لجعل المدن مرنة، وكذلك من خلال مشاركتها في إطلاق الحملة من مدينة دبي في الأسبوع الماضي. ومن منطلق ريادتها العالمية تحرص مدينة دبي على أن تكون أول مدينة أو أول مركز عالمي للمرونة اللي هي ريزيلينس هاب. أن التزام دبي بهذه الحملة واعتمادا على أنها ستكون مركزا عالميا للمرونة، فإن مدينة دبي سوف تعمل على دعم جهود برنامج MCR 2030 العالمي باعتبار دبي مركزا عالميا للمرونة، وتوفير الدعم الفني لدعم إدارة مركز المرونة، استضافة الأحداث الدولية المتعلقة MCR 2030 مثل تنظيم المؤتمر الدولي الأول حول المدن الصامدة خلال إكسبو 2020 والتوأمة مع مدن أخرى للتشاور وتقديم الدعم الفني وتنفيذ البرامج التبادل من مدينة إلى مدينة كل عام. الدول العربية طبعا ذات أولوية قصوى. تنسيق الجولات الدراسية لعرض الأمثلة العملية وتبادل الخبرات ودعم المدن المجاورة في رحلة المرونة. نشر المنتجات المعرفية والدروس المستفادة والممارسات الجيدة وتطوير الحقائب التدريبية والأدوات ومواد المناصرة باللغتين العربية والإنجليزية وتدريب وبناء قدرات المدن. ولكم جزيل الشكر والاحترام، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا سيادة العقيد أحمد، وشكرا لكافة المعلومات والتزامكم نحو حملة جعل المدن مرنة 2030، ونتطلع للعمل المشترك في المستقبل إن شاء الله. ننتقل الآن للسيدة أسلماء الشيباني منير بالنيابة عن السيدة فاطمة بنت عبد المالك، وهي رئيسة نواكشوط، للحديث عن نواكشوط والتطورات الخاصة بهم نحو حملة جعل المدن مرنة والتزامات.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أنا سألقي عليكم خطاب السيدة الرئيسة التي كانت تود أن تلقيه هي بنفسها، ولكن نتيجة للالتزامات المسبقة اضطرت على أن تقادر، لذا سألقي كلمتها. أتوجه بالشكر في البداية لمكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، على تنظيم هذا اللقاء الهام. لتنظيم هذا اللقاء الهام الذي يندرج ضمن سلسلة اللقاءات التي دأب عليها منذ إطلاق حملة جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود مدن مرنة 2030، وذلك في إطار تنفيذ إطار السندات للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. سيدات والسادة المشاركون الكرام، كما تدركون جيدا لا شك أن إشكالية الحد من أخطار الكوارث لا تزال وستظل في صدارة الأولويات بالنسبة للحكومات المركزية والمحلية على حد سواء، وهو ما يتأكد يوما بعد يوم بفعل حجم التهديدات المرتبطة بالأخطار المختلفة التي تواجه البشرية والتي تهدد بشكل حقيقي مستقبل وجودها. ولعل هذا التحدي ما يقتضي منا بصورة مزامنة وعاجلة مضاعفة سقف التزاماتنا بخصوص مواجهة هذه الكوارث والأخطار المرتبطة بها، حتى نضمن مستقبلا آمنا لمدننا ولساكنتها. أما بخصوص ترتيباتنا من خلال الحملة السابقة، فإننا بهذا الإطار نحيي ما تم إنجازه على مستوى حملة جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود 2030، وما تمخض عنها من نتائج إيجابية على مستوى مدننا العربية، حيث في هذا الإطار تمكنت مدينة نواكشوط من إعداد خطة عمل للحد من أخطار الكوارث الفترة ما بين 2019 2030، وذلك لمواجهة الأخطار المتعددة التي تحيط بها والمتمثلة في الفيضانات وأخطار الغمر البحري وزحف الرمال وغيرها. وحرصا منا لتعزيز جهودنا في هذا النطاق، فقد تم دمج هذه الخطة ضمن برنامج شامل وأوسع للحد من التغيرات المناخية، ممكنا من وضع المخطط العملي لوجود الطاقة والمناخ، وهو مخطط متمركز في 3 أبعاد أساساً، هي التكيف مع آثار التغيرات المناخية والتخفيف من تلك الآثار، وأخيراً الولوج للطاقة النظيفة. وانطلاقاً من ذلك كله قمنا بإعداد البرنامج التنموي الجهوي المستديم لمدينة نواكشوط، الذي يأخذ بعين الاعتبار مختلف هذه الأنشطة ويضبط برمجتها المجالية والزمنية بصورة تضمن لنا تنفيذها ومتابعتها وتقييمها وفق مؤشرات ومقاييس محددة. وعلى مستوى التنفيذ تمكنت جهة نواكشوط من إحراز تقدم ملموس على مستوى بعض الجوانب، وخاصة التنظيمية والوقائية، ومنها ما يدخل في إطار عون السكان ومساعدة المتضررين، وذلك قبل أن تنحصر تدخلاتنا منذ إبريل الماضي حول تسيير جائحة كوفيد والعمل إلى جانب الحكومة المركزية للخروج من هذه الأزمة الخطيرة. أما بخصوص الدروس المستفادة من الحملة السابقة، فإننا نرى أنها مكنت من زيادة الوعي بأهمية الحد من الكوارث والأخطار المرتبطة بها، زيادة الوعي بخصوص دمج الكوارث ضمن خطط التنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية، زيادة الوعي بخصوص أهمية العمل المشترك وتبادل الخبرات والممارسات الجيدة على المستوى العملي، زيادة الوعي بخصوص توحيد الصفوف والعمل المشترك بين الحكومات المركزية والحكومات المحلية من جهة، واشراك مختلف الفاعلين الترابيين في مواجهة الكوارث. الوعي بأهمية إعادة ترتيب الأولويات بعد جائحة كوفيد. أهمية مراجعة خطط العمل. أما طموحاتنا في المستقبل بخصوص برنامج جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود 2020-2030 فإننا نطمح إلى مواصلة هذه الحملة والبرامج المرتبطة بها على مستوى المدن العربية، العمل على توفير الموارد المالية لتنفيذ هذا البرنامج، مواصلة نهج التعاون والتكامل بين المدن والبلدان بخصوص الحد من الكوارث، العمل على إعادة النظر في المخططات العمرانية لمدننا لتصبح أكثر قدرة على الصمود أمام الكوارث، ترسيخ ثقافة التعاون والتضامن بين مدننا ليعطي نتيجة أكبر من التعاون الثنائي بين الدول. أما بخصوص أهمية بناء القدرات فنرى من الضروري متابعة ما تم تحقيقه من إنجازات خلال المرحلة السابقة، وضع برنامج موازي للحملة خاصة بناء القدرات مع تعبئة الموارد المالية اللازمة لذلك. وأشكركم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
أشكر جزيلا السيدة أسلمة الشيباني منير، ونشكر جهود نواكشوط نحو حملة جعل المدن مدينة 2030 في المستقبل إن شاء الله، وكل ما قاموا به سابقا. نفتح المجال للأسئلة، بعض الأسئلة التي حصلنا عليها. هناك سؤال موجه بشكل عام لكافة المتحدثين: هل هناك استراتيجية عربية موحدة لتطوير المدن العربية المهددة نحو جعلها مدن صامدة؟ وهل يوجد برنامج لتبادل القدرات ولتمويل عربي مشترك؟ الرجاء لمن يرغب بالإجابة على هذا السؤال أن يرفع يده. المشاركين المتحدثين: هل هناك استراتيجية عربية موحدة لتطوير المدن العربية المهددة؟ وهل هناك برنامج لتبادل القدرات؟ أتوقع أن السيد سجيت قادر على الإجابة على هذا السؤال، كوننا في مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث ندير برنامج التدريب. مستر سجيت.
Thank you, Rania. I think it's a very pertinent question. And as we heard about MCR 2030, and we are aware that there was a Making Cities Resilient campaign going on from last 10 years. It was launched in 2010, as Alia was presenting. And this has been a big effort by many partners joined up together to provide this whole sort of strategy to move forward on cities resilience. And we hope that the MCR 2030 actually takes that role even more to implementation of city level resilience with all cities together, with all partners together. It's a big partnership. It's a joined up approach which really sort of drives the whole initiative of city resilience. So yes, I think for us and for all our partners, this is the MCR 2030, the Making Cities Resilient. This effort is a sort of umbrella, program that allows cities to move forward in a very concerted manner.
Thank you, Mr. Sujit. كان سيد محمد بن سعيد، هل هناك سؤال أو مداخلة من قبلكم؟ سيد محمد بن سعيد. يبدو أنه ميوتد أو ما عم يسمعنا. كافة الأسئلة التي تم إرسالها إلينا سنقوم بالإجابة عليها وإرسالها لكافة الحضور مع العروض التي تم تقديمها من قبل المشاركين اليوم في الندوة. ننتقل الآن لعرض سريع لإطلاق مبادرة جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود. واسمحوا لي بأن أشارك العرض من قبلي.
Rania, there's no audio. I think you have to share the audio with the.
يبدو أن الصوت ما كانش مسموع. نعتذر عن ذلك. والآن أعطي الكلمة الختامية للمشاركين من المدن وندعوهم للانضمام لحملة جعل المدن مرنة 2030 من خلال الموقع الإلكتروني الجديد. وأعطي كمان الكلمة للسيد سجيت مهانتي ليدعو المدن للمشاركة في حملة جعل المدن مرنة 2030 ويقدم الكلمة الختامية اليوم.
Thank you, Rania. It was, I think, a little bit unfortunate that we couldn't hear the video, but it was really an impressive video which was prepared. So colleagues, let me take this opportunity to thank all of the panelists for their excellent presentations. As we mark today the launch of the MCR 2030 in the Arab region, I really urge governments and partners in the region to step up and join the MCR 2030 program to take the whole city resilience to new heights. As you know, that the program will be from 2030, which also coincides with the decade of action for sustainable development. And the program, definitely provides an opportunity to contribute significantly to all our endeavor towards the sustainable development. As you see from Alia's presentation, partnership and collaboration are in the heart of the initiative. The idea is to create a partnership at global, regional, and national level, and essentially leveraging on each other's strength to make a provision for adequate support to cities in their resilience journey. This initiative seeks to scale up resilience at the local level through increasing number of cities committed to reducing their risk. So it's essential that we create this momentum of more and more cities joining this journey and supporting each other and with a very synergized collaboration and support to each other in this journey. The strategy and the framework of the Making Cities Resilient 2030, it responds to this growing need of systemic joint approach in risk reduction, and it allows cities leaders to plan for risk-informed development. So colleagues, now it's time for to capitalize on this momentum and all based on the existing and new partnerships we have to deliver on this new endeavor. We are fortunate to have many committed cities in this region who are already part of the Making Cities Resilient campaign, and we heard from cities like Dubai and Nouakchott today in this event. We also know that Dubai City, with their commitment, has not only become a role model city as a smart, sustainable, and resilient city. They have also stepped up to and shown their leadership in taking action and supporting other cities as a resilience hub through this MCR 2030 program. So colleagues, I take this opportunity to again, call upon all the cities in the region to join this initiative. The website, which is mcr2030.undrr.org, which is available on our on the UNDRR website, provides all the necessary details to how to join the movement, how to become cities in different categories, resilience hubs, and so on. All the details are there. I really urge again to join this initiative and make it a success. So with that, I think I thank you very much again for all your time and participation today. And I look forward really to have this journey continued with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rania.
Thank you.
Thank you all. شكرا، ونجدد كمان مرة شكرنا وتقديرنا لجهود مكتب الأمم المتحدة، وشكرنا لجميع الشركاء، والتزامنا كمان بالحملة وبكوننا مركز عالمي للمرونة ريزيلينس هاب.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور.
Thank you.
مع السلامة.
Thank you everyone. Bye.